Psalm 100 from the Paleo-Hebrew Scriptures. Make a loud noise. Shout for joy unto Yahweh the ever-living. Go to him before his face with a ringing cry of joy. Know him intimately and completely, for he, Yahweh the ever-living, is El-Hayam. He has fashioned us, working by labor to produce us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the small cattle of his pasturing. Go to him, and to his gate with confession, thanksgiving, praise, into his enclosure with hymns of celebration. Cast forth praise unto him, kneel and place a gift before him. Prosper his name. For Yahweh is beautiful, kind, upright, fair and agreeable. His hesed, desire and mercy, zeal and kindness, endure unto time of long duration. For as far as the eye can see or perceive, to the edge of the horizon and beyond, and his faithfulness circles from age to age perpetually.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's that time again, Friday night. Every single time we come up to, I'm watching the clock go down and it hits the 0 seconds. I'm like, here we go. And I hit that record button, no turning back. Hope everybody had a good preparation day. And of course, whenever you're celebrating Sabbath, I'm a seventh-day Sabbath keeper myself. Some people keep it with the moon, either the crescent waxing moon, or the full moon, one of the two, or whatever. Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Coming to you this week from the Netherlands. It's been a bit of a whirlwind of a travel schedule, and it's been a swift moving current. Last week, when I gave my talk, it was actually pre-recorded last week, and I did it from Oxford. But actually, at the same time, not to confuse anyone, I was in Belgium last weekend, in Bruges, Belgium. So here I am in the beautiful Netherlands, and hope everyone else is doing good. I have a lot to get to tonight, so I guess I should just waste no time. The meaning of life. Now, here's the thing about the meaning of life. It's a pretty tall. I mean, if you were to go to a restaurant and you have like a menu of things to order, you got your cheeseburger and you got your, chicken salad and your whatever, you're here in Britain, they would call it a jacket potato instead of a baked potato. You got your pastas and your anti-pasta, but you see on the menu the meaning of life, and you're like, you ask the waiter or the waitress, what do you recommend? And they go down the list. They're like, how about the meaning of life? And they're like, yeah, that's definitely a fan favorite here. You should go with that. So they bring it out to you on a plate, and you're like, this, you have high expectations for this, right? So when it comes to the meaning of life, I'm gonna try the best I can to give it to you from the perspective of the Kolbrin. Yes, the Kolbrin. We're going over that tonight, and it was about 9 months ago, maybe close to a year ago at this point. I gave a talk to you on the Matrix and the Mind of God. It might have been called the Mind of God and the Matrix, one of the two, but it was the concept that our existence could be due to the fact that we are perceived by our Creator. And that if he does not perceive us, it means we do not exist. And then I went into the canonical scripture, and particularly the Gospels, where Yahshua would make claims like, be gone, I don't know you, right? I don't know who you are. And so the idea is, instead of I think, therefore I am, the idea is to be perceived. Well, it was while giving that talk, a lot of people really liked that. I didn't really, it was just a very interesting idea. I couldn't prove it really either way. I started noticing in a lot of these kind of texts I was reading, these these claims to what the meaning of life actually was. They were pretty provocative. Now, I think tonight, here at the Unexpected Cosmology, we don't really shy away from controversy. I like looking at a lot of different ideas. I hope everybody knows that I see myself as a very grounded person. And I believe the Bible is true from beginning to end. There's gonna be some things tonight you read and you're like, yeah, that is actually everything that I'm gonna read tonight. I think I'm pretty much on board with. And you might be too. But there could be some things, I'm telling you at the end of this tonight, if I make it to the end, it's going to be like the grand finale of fireworks. I mean, it's going to be it's a passage that I've never read from before. And it is the 20-minute, salute. It's the enchilada, the big burrito of a firework displays. And there's going to be some controversy in there. Some of you are going to read that or hear it and go, yeah, no, I don't jive with everything I'm hearing. So I guess best just to get into it tonight. The meaning of life. And we're going to start with the Lord's Prayer. You can see over here on the left is the standard. I think it might be King James. Not really sure. I can't remember at this point. And then over on the right, we'll do the paleo afterwards. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And now reading from the same passage in Paleo Matthew. Our Father, set apart is your name, and your royal dominion, your pleasure, your delight, you will exist in Shamayam and in Arats, and give us our bread continually, and pardon our faults, our sins and missteps, in the same manner in which we forgive those who commit faults, sins, missteps against us. And do not bring us into the hands of testing, but guard us from all evil. Amen. Amen. All right, so it was while we were going over Paleo Matthew, particularly in the Beatitudes, that I realized that I wanted to get back to the study. I've been wanting to talk about the meaning of life since that episode last, October, November, whenever it was, because I started noticing some themes as to the meaning of life lining up with Yahshua's Beatitudes that he gave on the mountain. So I'll read over here from, once again, the KJV, and then we'll look at the Paleo. And it says, when Yahshua saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. He opened his mouth and began to teach them, saying, now, obviously, I want you to see the highlighted sections here. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. The red part right there is kind of it. I think that's going to be the secret of life that we will be looking at tonight. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. And blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see Elohim. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of Elohim. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So I'll just, for the Paleo sections here, I'll just read the top half. Happy is he, the weak, the ignoble, the abject in Ra'uk. Theirs is the kingdom of shamayim. Happy is he, the ones who wait, for they will rest. Happy is he, the afflicted ones, the miserable, they will inherit Arats. Happy is he, the pure of heart, he will see Alukot Yom. So there's going to be a theme tonight in the meaning of life, if you haven't guessed already, is suffering. It is through suffering that we will find purpose, we will find joy, and we will find our end goal. And the more we go through life trying to avoid suffering, trying to not jump into the fire, the more we're going to handicap ourselves from reaching our ultimate goal. Now, this appeared on my Discord page yesterday at 4:47 p.m. I assume that's Eastern time. Now, Jen here posted this, and I didn't tell her I was going to show this. Hopefully she doesn't mind. Hopefully I didn't violate any community standards doing that. And she took a picture of Mr. Planter, as she calls him. He has a name. And this is what Jen said. She said, for 20 plus years, I wanted to learn how to make pottery, and I'm finally doing it. Mr. Planter is my first finished piece. Now, I immediately saw this picture, and my first thought is that we can learn a lot from Mr. Planter. I mean, just looking at Mr. Planter, I had this, I'm kind of a sensitive guy with some insight, and my gut feeling was that Mr. Planter has seen stuff. Mr. Planter has been through things and knows something about the meaning of life. And my first response, you see, I was the first to respond to this. I had to jump right on this. When these opportunities don't come along very often, and I wrote, I think a little piece of Mr. Planter lives in all of us. In which Jen quickly responded. I posted that at 8:42 a.m. this morning, and she posted within 15 minutes later. He's been through the fire a couple of times, and of course I knew it. I mean, I got that sense that Mr. Planter had jumped into the fire, and she added on top of that, and I had to repair him twice before going in the first time. So I mean, you could just look at that face of Mr. Planter. Mr. Planter has seen stuff. Mr. Planter has some gnosis. And I mean, the end result is that after Mr. Planter was broken and then mended and fixed and then went into the fire, apparently more than once. Apparently it wasn't just one time that Mr. Planter had to go through the fire. The end result is that he's got some beautiful plants growing from him, some herbage, and he's giving life. Now, working off of that analogy there, as if I've actually made one yet, this picture, a lot darker hair. That's me, by the way, a lot darker hair. This was 6 years ago, in case you're wondering. And I'm actually sitting at the desk of C.S. Lewis. I'm in Oxford. We were staying there for the month. And, I walked into the room. I was the only one standing there. I was in C.S. Lewis's office where he wrote many wonderful tales, including, the children's story about the Aslan lion and, the science fiction trilogy and, all sorts of stuff. And I saw a pipe just sitting there. There was his books there on the desk, and there was a pipe. And I thought, no one's looking, and I thought I would just share a smoke with C.S. Lewis. So now that right there is actually not C.S. Lewis. That is a man named Anthony Hopkins, and he is playing C.S. Lewis. I don't usually recommend movies, but if you've never seen Shadowlands, that gives the Noel Joshua Hadley stamp of approval. I do recommend seeing Shadowlands. It is a heart-wrenching, a gut-wrenching tale about loss and the meaning of life, pain, sorrow, and joy. And what C.S. Lewis actually calls, if anybody, I'll say it, like if anybody got the meaning of life, it was C.S. Lewis. Say what you will about him, but he actually got it. And he He wrote very complex theological, philosophical, psychological concepts in layman terms. And he coined the term, I think he coined the term, the gift of suffering. The gift. Suffering is a gift. When was the last time you have suffered and you're like, man, I keep packing on those gifts, God. I just can't. I love your gifts. They're really awesome. It's all, what I've always wanted. All my dreams are coming true. But yes, that's what C.S. Lewis calls it. He calls it the gift of suffering. I'll read you a few quotes. And what I'm going to do tonight, when I break into the Kolbrin, is I'll bring up these quotes every so often, and you'll see how they connect. Or maybe I won't bring them up at all, and you have to, use your memory to tie them together. And this is what he says: isn't God supposed to be good? Isn't God supposed to love us? That's a good question. Those are atheist questions right there. That's exactly what an atheist would, they'd be like, I can't believe in your God because he's not a loving God at all. Look at all the things that he allows humanity to go through, or what he has actually perhaps even inflicted on humanity. And if anybody would know, it was C.S. Lewis, because he was an atheist. And I love atheists in some regards. I really do, because they have an intellectual honesty. They have a lot of baggage and scars that, handicaps them, but they do have a type of intellectual honesty that a lot of Christians are not able to face. And yeah, C.S. Lewis has a dark past, but this is a guy who I really truly believe that he had a conversion. He came around and he wore his emotions on his sleeves. A lot of people frown on him for that. But he was able to, let's just see what C.S. Lewis says here. So let's start from the top. Isn't God supposed to be good? Isn't God supposed to love us? And does God want us to suffer? What if the answer to that question is yes? Because I'm not sure that God particularly wants us to be happy. Keep in mind, this is his theology of the gift of suffering. I think he wants us to be able to love and be loved. He wants us to grow up. I suggest to you that it is because God loves us that he makes us the gift of suffering. Now, for all disclosure, that is actually not a C.S. Lewis quote. That comes from the movie Shadowlands. That's that scene right there where Anthony Hopkins is preaching. I think it's like on a Sunday morning or something like that. However, this quote is taken. It's based upon, as you can see, his actual writings in The Problems of Pain, Surprised by Joy, things like that. So let's look at what he says in The Problem of Pain. I suggest to you that it is because God loves us that he gives us the gift of suffering. There it is. Pain is God's megaphone to rouse a deaf world. You see, we are like blocks of stone out of which the sculptor carves the forms of men. The blows of his chisel, which hurt us so much, are what make us perfect. And in fact, I think he even talked about this in Shadowlands as well. And this idea that, the statue is, or the stone, I should say, is screaming out. Like he's thinking, you are the most horrific. Like, who would ever do this to me, cause me to have this much pain? And the sculptor is like, just you wait and see what I'm going to, what is contained within you. And I'm not even making it. I'm just drawing it out from you. And then, of course, you have the beautiful sculpture on the other end. C.S. Lewis also said, I received no assurance that anything we can do will eradicate suffering. I think the best results are obtained by people who work quietly away at limited objectives, such as the abolition of the slave trade, or prison reform, or factory acts, or tuberculosis, not by those who think they can achieve universal justice or health or peace. I think the art of life consists in tackling each immediate evil as well as we can. Now, I wholeheartedly agree with this, 100%. A lot of my audience will not. I'm just assuming that based on conversations I've had. And this is kind of getting a little bit political, but the Kolbrin doesn't shy away from that either. And it actually, we will see quotes tonight which will agree with this passage. So give you guys an example. You can look around at the world and say, well, the Zionists and the Illuminati and the Freemasons, and they run the world, and NASA still, doing their hoaxes, and we have lies everywhere and that kind of stuff. And so C.S. Lewis, he's actually saying here that, like, you're not going to achieve universal justice. That's never going to happen. It is not going to happen. All right. So if you're waiting around for that, you're going to be a Debbie Downer, glass half empty person for the rest of your life. That's what you want. You can sit on the sidelines and pout. It's never going to happen. But what you can do is you can choose your battles. There are things that we can accomplish, and let's get the food dyes out of the food in the West. That's an accomplishment. That's awesome. Let's do that, right? Just things like that. That's what he's talking about. Here's another quote from C.S. Lewis. We shall draw nearer to God, not by trying to avoid the sufferings inherent in all loves, but by accepting them and offering them to him, throwing away all defensive armor. I'm telling you guys, this is tough. I just had a very difficult phone conversation today with an individual who was crying, at some points weeping into the phone. And this individual has been so hurt by religion and religious people, very hurt and slandered. And my response to this individual was asking them, well, first of all, telling them to embrace the pain of what they're going through and to process it and to not shove it down. I was saying you're doing the right thing by crying and talking about this, but not to forsake God or give up on him at all. And to recognize that, even though nobody wants to go through this pain or suffering, certainly not in the way that this individual was, through people in the community that they trusted and were open to, but to recognize that God is taking them through this to make them a beautiful person. And he says, if our hearts need to be broken, and if he chooses this as the way in which they should break, so be it. Let Yah's will be done. He also says, if you want to get warm, you must stand near to the fire. And, going back up here to Mr. Planter, I think Mr. Planter knows something about this, about standing near to the fire, and or actually jumping into the fire. And if you want to be wet, you must go into the water. If you want joy, power, peace, eternal life, yes, he just threw that in there, you must get close to or even into the thing that has them. So he's saying that, again, that joy, power, peace, eternal life, the only way to access those is through suffering, because that's where you're going to find it. Of course, Mashiach, Yahshua, he showed us the way through picking up our cross and following him, right? They are not a sort of prize which God could, if he chose, to just hand out to anyone. C.S. Lewis also says this. I think this is, he's got two more quotes here tonight. I'm not sure God wants us to be happy. I think he wants us to love and be loved. You could see how Shadowlands kind of pulled from that there. But we are like children, thinking our toys will make us happy, and the whole world is our nursery. Something must drive us out of that nursery and into the lives of others, and that something is suffering. One more. Why love if losing hurts so much? I have no answers anymore. Only the life I have lived. Now, the context of this here is that one of the things that drove C.S. Lewis into atheism was the death of his mother, and he could never understand how a loving God would allow his mother to die. And as you can see, as he processed this into his adult life, and he came back around, that became the very core of his theology, saying that suffering is embracing suffering is at the heart of who Yah is. And this is where he gets the idea of the nursery, right? Even as a grown man, as an atheist, he was still in the nursery. He was embracing the toys. He needed his comfort. He was too afraid to go out there in the world and experience life in the as he calls it, the water, right? The polar bear plunge, the fire. And later in life, he, interestingly enough, the woman's name was Joy. Like, how poetic is that? It's so perfect. The woman's name was Joy, and he married her really in a way that wasn't sensual, but it was in a way that he wanted to take care of her. He really, truly cared for her. And then, of course, he adopted her son, Douglas Grisham, and she died. And this is where this quote comes from right here. Twice in that life, I've been given the choice, as a boy and as a man. The first being his mother, the second his wife. The boy chose safety. The man chooses suffering. The pain now is part of the happiness then. That's the deal. C.S. Lewis. All right, so let's start looking at different aspects of the purpose of life. And this first passage, all of these tonight come from the Kolbrin. I've introduced this in the past. I'm going to quickly say this for the 2 or 3 individuals who are showing up here for the first time. Welcome to everybody. And you're like, what is this? What's the Kolbrin? The Kolbrin is a book that has really come to our attention over the last 20 years, maybe the late 90s, early 2000s. And the scholars really haven't picked it apart yet, but it has gotten a lot of interest, and it's growing in popularity. It comes out of Britain, and it appears to come from specifically the disciples of Joseph of Arimathea. Joseph was the first to go over to Britain after Yahshua, and he converted the nation. It was the first Christian nation, and these people were greatly inspired by him. They come out of the Druid faith. They also identify as coming out of Egypt at the time of the Exodus. They also claim to be, they were basically, they were Israel. They would say that they were Jewish at that time. So it's a very interesting history with them. And the context of this passage right here is dealing with the origins of the earth, when Elohim first made humanity. And it says this: Elohim saw man, the offering of earth to her Lord, unconscious on the high altar, a sacrifice to him and a dedication to the spirit of fate. Then from out of the unfathomable heights and from behind the impenetrable veil, Elohim came down above the altar, and he breathed into man the breath of eternal life. Into a sleeping body, Elohim implanted a fragment of himself, the seed of a soul and the spark of divinity. And man, the mortal, became man, the heir of Elohim and the inheritor of immortality. Henceforth, he would have dominion over Elohim's earthly estate, but he also had to unravel the circles of eternity, and his destiny was to be an everlasting seeking and striving. Man slept, but Elohim opened the great eye within him, and man saw a vision of unsurpassed glory. He heard the voice of Elohim saying, "O man, in your hand is now placed the tablet of your inheritance, and my seal is upon it. Know that all you desire within your heart may be yours, but first it is necessary that you be taught its value. Behold, the earth is filled with things of usefulness. They are prepared to your hand for a purpose," as in the meaning of life. "But the task is upon you to seek them out and learn their use. This is the tuition of the management of your inheritance." We're going to see a couple times tonight where even though man is born in complete ignorance, this is all by Yah's design. And actually, I think that this scene here, even though this is at the beginning of time, I also do believe that all souls were created in front of the throne on the first day, very beginning, and that we all, every single one of us, had something similar to this. Now you're going to see that this third eye that's being opened up, they are seeing like everything is being shown to them, and then he shuts up the vision, and then mankind spends the rest of history trying to kind of relive that experience. And I do believe every single one of us, that before we came down to the earth, that we saw this, what they're about to describe. What you know to be good, seek for, and it shall be found. You may plumb the seas and pluck the stars. You may live in everlasting glory and savor eternal delights. Above and below and all about, there is nothing beyond your reach. All with one exception is yours to attain. Then Elohim laid his hand upon man, saying, now you are even as I, except you sleep there, enclosed in matter in the kingdom of illusion. And while I dwell here in the freedom of reality and truth. It is not for me to come down to you, but for you to reach out to me. Again, this is all part of the meaning of life. Our unborn friends, whatever your circumstances of life, you are the children of the past and heirs of those who have lived and died. We have no cause to reproach those who once held stewardship over your estate. But whatever you think of the heritage, you cannot put it aside any more than you can refuse that men then saw a vision of glory encompassing even the spheres of splendor. Unbounded wisdom filled his heart, and he beheld beauty in perfection. The ultimates of truth and justice were unveiled before him. He became one with the profound peace of eternity and knew the joys of unceasing gladness. The eternal ages of time unrolled as a scroll before his eyes. It almost, this whole scene almost reminds me of like Gandalf, and after he dies fighting the Balrog, and he goes into eternity. He's like recounting it later. The great vaults of heaven were opened up unto him, and he saw the everlasting fires and unconsumable powers that strove therein. He felt within himself the stirring of inexpressible love, and unlimited designs of grandeur filled his thoughts. His spirit ranged unhampered through all the spheres of existence. He was then even as Elohim himself, and he knew the secret of the 7 spheres within 3 spheres. There's that line right there. There's a whole, like 3 or 4 studies in and of itself. Then Elohim lifted his hand from man, and man was alone. The great vision departed, and he awoke. Only a dim and elusive recollection, no more than the shadow of a dream remained. I mean, think about this when you guys wake up, right? You have a very strong dream, and you're going from like the alpha state into the beta state or whatever, and if you sit there, if you've ever kept a dream journal, and you write it down right when you wake up, you'll remember it. But if you don't think about the dream, it like slips out of your memory forever. Right, that's what I think it's talking about here, and I think that happened to every single one of us. But deep within the sleeping soul, there was a spark of remembrance, and the spark of remembrance is what drives us spiritually to know our Creator. And it generated with the man a restless longing, for he knew not what. Henceforth, man was destined to wander discontented, seeking something he felt he knew, but could not see. Something which continually eluded him, perpetually goaded him, and forever tantalized him. Deep within himself, man knew something greater than himself was always with him and part of him, spurring him on to greater deeds, greater thoughts, greater aspirations. It was something out beyond himself, scarcely realized and never found, something which told him that the radiant seen on the horizon but dimly reflected the hidden glory beyond it. Man awoke, the revelation and vision gone. Only the grim reality of Earth's untamed vastness surrounded him. But when he arose and stepped down onto the bosom of his Mother Earth, he was undaunted by the great powers that beset him or by the magnitude of the task ahead. Within his heart, he knew destiny lay beyond the squalor of his environment. He stepped out nobly, gladly accepting the challenge. He was now a new man. He was different. He looked above and saw glory in the heavens. He saw beauty about him. and he knew goodness in things not of the earth. The vision of eternal values arose before his inner eye. His spirit was responding to its environment. Man was now man, truly man. The nature of man on earth was formed after the nature of things in heaven, and man had all things contained as potential within himself, except divine life. But he was as yet an untrained, undisciplined child, still nurtured simply upon the comforting bosom of earth. Does that line up with anything C.S. Lewis may have said right there? Man grew in stature, but earth was not indulgent, for she disciplined him firmly. She was ever strict and unyielding, chastening him often with blasts of displeasure. It was indeed the upbringing of one destined for greatness. He was made to suffer cold, that he might learn to clothe himself, sent into the barren places, that his limbs should be strengthened, and into forest, that his eyes should become keen and his heart strong. He was perplexed with difficult problems and set the task of unraveling the illusions of nature. He was beset with hardships of every description. He was tested with frustrations and tempted with allurements. Never did earth relax the vigilance of her supervision. The child was raised sternly, for he needed the fortitude, courage, and cunning of a man to fit him for the task ahead. He grew wily and wiry in the hunt. He became adaptable, able to cope with any untoward happening. Overcoming the bewilderments of early days, he found explanations for the perplexities of his surroundings. Yet the struggle for knowledge, the need for adaptation, and the effort to survive were never relaxed. The earth child was well trained and disciplined. He was never unduly mollycoddled. He cried for bread and went hungry. He shivered and was cast out. He was sick and driven into the forest. Weary, he was lashed with storms. Thirsty, he found the waters dried. When weak, his burden was increased. And in the midst of rejoicing, he was struck down with sorrow. In moments of weakness, he cried, "Enough," and doubted his destiny. But always something fortified and encouraged him. The earthling never fortified his godlikeness. Now, this last paragraph here is really what kind of reels this section in. For man was man, he was not cowed, nor his spirit broken. A wise Allahayam knew his limitations. As it is written in the wisdom of men, over chastisement is as bad as no chastisement at all. But man was rarely chastised. He was tried, tested, and challenged. He was led, prodded, and urged. Yet nothing was done unnecessarily. The seeming imperfections of earth, the hazards and inequalities of life, the cruelty, harshness, and apparent indifference to suffering and affliction are not what they seem. So think about this right here from a atheist perspective versus, or C.S. Lewis perspective from the atheist childlike stage of his life to the theologian later on, right? He's at first looking around and he's seeing earth as an imperfection. And later on, he sees it as perfect, including all of the suffering within it. As it is, earth is perfect for its purpose. It is the ignorance of that purpose which makes it appear imperfect. All right, so moving on tonight. So I got a lot to cover. The purpose of life. One of the purposes of life is striving for the unseen fate of man. That which we cannot see because we're looking through a glass darkly, which I kind of think of as a description of the firmament. Let's see, how long is this here? Okay, I can read the whole thing. Awful is the great day of judgment at its dawning in the netherworld. So right there, this chapter 13, this comes from the Book of Scrolls, which is also in the Kolbrin. The whole thing is on judgment, all right? So the purpose of life, striving for the unseen fate of man, for the coming judgment of all men. We're all going to get it someday. You're every one of us. We are daddy's coming home. When daddy comes home, you know what happens? He brings the paddle with him. It happens to every single one of us. The soul stands naked in the hall of judgment. Nothing can now be hidden. Hypocrisy is no avail. To maintain goodness when the soul reveals its own repulsiveness is futile. To mumble empty rituals foolishness. To call upon gods who have no existence is a waste of time. Now, that line right there, to mumble empty rituals foolishness, that is repeated constantly. That will be in the grand finale fireworks, displayed tonight, if I make it that far. It plays straight into like Isaiah and Yahshua's words, and just the empty rituals of religion that people use that as a mask to hide behind. And on Judgment Day, it's going to do nothing for you at all. In the hall of judgment, the wrongdoer is judged. On that day and henceforth, his quality shall form his food. His soul, soft as clay upon earth, is hardened and set into shape according to its molding. Reminds me of a certain friend we've met tonight. The balances are adjusted. One arrives. Now, for the rest of this chapter, we're going to see all these different types of people that are arriving to the day of judgment. One arrives. The 42 virtues are his assessors. Shall he dwell among beauty as a godling, or be given captive to the keeper of horrors? Ugh, I don't know why that doesn't sound too pleasant. I don't think I want to be captive to the keeper of horrors. That's his guy's official title. Just his like on his job description, he is the keeper of horrors. To dwell among vile things under a merciful mantle of darkness. No, thank you. One arrives. The twisted body tormented on earth, and the ugly face have gone discarded at the portal. Got to pass through a portal, I guess. He strides through the hall in radiance to pass into the place of everlasting beauty. They talk about that a lot too, right? Like people who are deemed very ugly in life, they actually have a beautiful soul, and these beautiful people, they go into the place of torment, and the ugly people go, they're just beauty beyond anyone's reckoning or understanding on this earth. One arrives. Now no earthly body shields the horror, which is the true likeness of the evildoer upon earth. He runs from the light, which he cannot tolerate, and hides himself in the shadows near the place of terror. You have to wonder if it's the keeper of horrors that he runs to. But soon he will be drawn to his compatible place among the dismal company. So it's helpful to note that as we're reading through the Kolbrin, they really line up with Mashiach's words very, very well when he says that many will come into the kingdom who don't know who he is, and many who think they know him will part ways. And this is what's going to happen. The Kolbrin talks about there's many people who are, I guess, ignorant in life, but they actually have the heart of the creator, where there's a lot of people who are, super knowledgeable. They get stuff. Like they know their chapter and verse. They know their conspiracy theories. They know everything, right? But they don't have the heart of Yah. And that in the end, when we die, our souls are going to be naturally, they're going to gravitate towards what we were ultimately attracted to in life. And one arrives, he has been upright and a just one. His failings and weakness were of little account. This upright man fears nothing, for he is welcomed among the bright ones, and shall go unhampered among the everlasting lords. One arrives, he trembles before the unseen judges. He is lost, he knows nothing. Earthly knowledge and confidence are left behind. The balance drops. He sees his soul and recognizes his true self. He rushes into the merciful darkness. It enfolds him, and dark arms embrace him. Ugh. It reminds me of that scene from the Labyrinth. Drawing him into the terrible gloom, into the place of dark, secret horrors. One arrives. She graced the court with beauty. Men sang of her loveliness and grace. Now, as when a mantle is removed, all is discarded. It is the time of unveiling. Dun, dun, dun. Who can describe the lustful thoughts and secrets, unclean deeds, which fashion the horror coming through the portal? There is a hush among the compassionate. They kind of leave you hanging there, huh? You don't really know, but everyone is like just shocked, because they're like, "Whoa, we really thought this she was a lady," And now her true self is coming through that portal, and it's like, whoa, that is not who we were expecting. One arrives on earth, she was pitied by the compassionate and scorned by the hard-hearted. There her lot was degradation and servitude, privation and sacrifice. Few and meager were the gifts from life, yet she triumphed. Now she comes forward, surrounded by brilliance. Even the shining ones are dazzled by her beauty. One arrives, the twisted face and pain-racked body of the cripple have been left behind. A kind and loving soul dwelt imprisoned within its confines. Now the relieved spirit steps forward into the great hall, unencumbered and free, glorious to behold. One arrives, the splendid body which graced earth remains there, an empty, decaying thing. The naked soul enters the everlasting halls. It is a deformed, misshapen thing, fit only to dwell in the merciful gloom of the place with which it has compatible affinity. And one arrives, neither goodness nor wickedness bears down upon the scales. The balances remain straight. The soul departs to the twilight borderland between the region of light and the region of darkness. Now that one is totally fascinating. I think it lines up exactly with what Enoch, one of the ways he describes Sheol, that there are righteous and there are wicked, and then there's just sinners, just people, paid their taxes in life, kind of minded their own business, went through life, got married, had kids, had grandkids, celebrate the holidays, and they kind of just go into death. Kind of interesting thought. O great lords of eternity, who once were in the flesh, even as I hear not the outpourings of an overburdened and sorrowful heart. For who am I to presume to call upon the great God of all? I, who am not without wickedness and weak in spirit. I have filled my heart with knowledge of the secret writings, but still I fear the judgment. Therefore, great lords of eternity, I call upon you who once walked the earth, even as I, and who therefore understand the failings and weaknesses of men. Did we just have the communion with the saints right there? Apparently this is done in the Orthodox Church as well. It's also done in the Catholic Church, and calling upon the saints to pray for us. And I've commented on this before. I want to do a show on this again. That and C.S. Lewis is big on this too, by the way, because if you go into a chat room, or we have a prayer, request room on Tuck Discord, and you go in there and you say, hey, look, I need prayer. These are things I need prayer for. But we are taught that we are not to, apparently when people die, they can no longer pray for us. I don't believe that is true. And I believe that if they are saints that are a priest in heaven, or, in terrestrial paradise, or wherever they're at, that it is their job to pray for us. And they do pray for us. And I think that it's perfectly acceptable to ask Allahayam that the saints pray for us. That's just my opinion. If you disagree, it is what it is. I am not weak in my standing with earthly things, but I am weak beside the greater beings. Will I too ever be worthy of the grandeur of the eternal mansions? O great beings whose nature is beyond understanding, grant me just a spark of the eternal wisdom, that it might light my soul and kindle the flame of immortal life. What is the destined fate of a man who knows the existence of things beyond his understanding? I see, but I do not know. Therefore, I am afraid. Man can swim against the current toward the bank, but he needs a helping hand to pull him ashore when he's exhausted from the struggle. This is the fate of man. He must strive for that which he cannot attain. So you see me highlighting this. This is the point here, the meaning of life. You must strive, every single one of you. We must strive for what we cannot attain. We must believe in that which we cannot prove. We must seek that which we cannot find. Of course, we will pass through that portal into the great hall of judgment. We must travel a road without knowing our destination. Only thus can the purpose or the meaning of life be fulfilled. That comes from the Book of Scrolls 13. Let me go ahead and read these last two lines here. Man may believe he knows his destiny, but he cannot be assured with certainty. In no other way can he fulfill it. In this way alone can his soul be properly awakened to flower with its full potential. This alone he may know. The purpose of all human life is a goal so glorious it surpasses all earthly understanding. And they went through that, right, with all the different people showing up. And it seemed to give the perspective that, some people, achieved their goal of maybe beauty in life or, being praised in a certain way, and they achieved it. That was it. And the people who were despised on earth, their goal was something that cannot be understood by us mortals in this life. You have to go into it in blind faith. We may visualize our individual goals as we will. It is ordained that we have this freedom. How close or how far we are from reality is of little consequence. What is. He who seeks a non-existent destination will, nevertheless, get somewhere. He who seeks not at all will get nowhere. Doesn't this sound like the parable of the talents? Earthly life fulfills itself without attainment. And of course, we just read that in Matthew, the talents. I think maybe in the last couple of weeks. The secret of life, God in us. Now, I want to be very clear here that in this ministry, this channel, I do not push Christ consciousness in any way, shape, or form. If for whatever reason this text proved to be, Christ consciousness, I would imagine that maybe some who do pursue that line of thinking might be attracted to this chapter. Then I would disagree with it. However, I'm going to show you that the purpose of life is for God or Allahayam to dwell in us. Certainly the Ruach of our Father in heaven. This is what it says. Or I would even say Hakamaha, our wisdom, our mother in heaven. If a man would know heaven, he must first know earth. So there it is right there, right? We have come from heaven down to the earth in order to learn a vital lesson. And this is the training ground where we have to learn what it is, or we have to learn to conform into the image of our Father in heaven. That is the purpose of life. That's why we're here. So that's what it means. We must first know earth. Man cannot understand heaven until he understands the earth, because, of course, the earth is a disciplinary training ground. He cannot understand God or Allahayam unless he understands himself. And he cannot know love unless he has been loveless. Allahayam is unknown, but not unknowable. He is unseen, but not unseeable. Does this not line up with Yahshua's words? Allahayam is unheard, but not, that should say, but not unhearable. He is not understood, but he is understandable. The goal of life is upstream, not downstream. Man must struggle against the currents, not drift with the flow. And this would be the difference between the wide road of existence and the narrow road of existence. A child is born knowing all that Allahayam intends it to know. Isn't that kind of a comforting thought? We were born into this world in total just ignorance. And of course, we're just lied to and propaganda. It's just a gauntlet. This is what it means is to go upstream, right? And not downstream with the current of propaganda and the lies. The rest, it must discover for itself. This is the test. Are we worthy to enter his presence? It's all a test. Man does not live to increase the glory of Allahayam. This cannot be done, but to increase the glory of man. Now, some of you will hear that and go, that is completely untrue. I disagree with that. The more I read that line, the more I totally agree with it. And I would say that we would have to be really stuck in churchianity still to feel that, we just raise our hands and we're just praising God, right? And we just feel so good about ourselves. And he's there going, yeah, you're not okay. I actually don't need that at all. I'm completely content with who I am, and I know who I am. But do I know you, right? He who worships with empty rituals wastes his time, and displays the shallowness of his thought. That which man does to benefit man is good, but if he seeks to gratify God, it is a labor of ignorance, showing disrespect for God, whose nature is above that of earthly princes. A lifting hand is worth 10 wagging tongues. So I'm assuming here a lifting hand is not talking about the modern evangelical sense of, raising your hands, showing how holy you are to the crowd, but like getting to work, like pick up a weapon and fight type of person. That person who sees a need and he's out there harvesting the field. Like you see something that needs done and you go and do it, and maybe nobody notices, but that is worth more than 10, wagging tongues of people out there. You're like, well, I'm just praising God. I'm feeling good about myself. Be a man of fortitude and courage, prepared to fight. For earth gives man but two choices, to struggle or perish. There is work to be done in the garden of God. Now, that's a really interesting phrase there, because, I don't know if it's talking about terrestrial paradise. I think it is, but I think it also, I've been thinking about this line all week, and I think there's a case to be made that, particularly when we get into like, it would be third Baruch and maybe second Esdras, but when we get into those and we see that how we live our life on the earth actually affects the flower fields and the gardens of heaven. That's an interesting thought. And there's accounts of like angels, they go out and they gather flowers every day to bring into Yah's presence, and they're like, yeah, there wasn't much blossoming out there today. They're just, your people are just not worshipful at all. So that's a really interesting thought, that we are actually, so think about it like this. So a lot of people are going to go to heaven and call, terrestrial paradise, wherever they go, right? That you go through that portal and you see paradise, you see it, and you're like, man, I want to go in there, and I want to pluck fruit from those trees. And God's like, yeah, no, you're not going to do it. And you're like, why not? And it's like, well, you had your whole life to do it and you weren't doing it. Like, yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thought. There is work to be done in the garden of God. So get to work today, guys. Therefore, cease useless performances and word-wasting discussions. Go pick up the hoe and tackle the tasks to hand. So that's what it means right there by a lifting hand. So then maybe just go into a church when people have their hand, like, can you see on the camera, they got their hand up, just bring in I don't know, like a hoe or a trowel or a hammer. So I just start like putting it in their hands. That would be kind of funny. This is the secret of life. So there it is right there. What they just told you, this is the secret of life. Man lives in God and God lives in man. This answers all your questions. Now, again, before you guys go all Christ consciousness on me, I do want to point out, well, let me actually look at this again, what C.S. Lewis says. I read this earlier. He said, I think I have received no assurance that anything we can do will eradicate suffering. I think the best results are obtained by people who work quietly away at limited objectives, such as the abolition of, he's just naming some examples here. We could come up with our own today. The abolition of the slave trade, or prison reform, or factory acts, or tuberculosis, not by those who think they can achieve universal justice or health or peace. I think the art of life consists in tackling each immediate evil as well as we can. And this is what, you guys know that I love talking about politics. Some people get triggered and upset by it. I actually, when you want to relax me and I've had a hard day, I just want I want a beer in politics, and I feel relaxed. But you guys have heard me, say things like, I get excited that some accomplishments are being done, and you guys like, no, some people are like, no, you need to wake up, man. It's all a lie. They're lying about everything. It's all an act. There's nothing you can do. And I don't let this stop me. I get it, guys. I get it. The evil is still running this world, but we can't sit by and not fight. We have to get some objectives, And we like little bits by little bits by little bits. This is how winning is done, in just little steps. And we can't just wait for the whole, the whole matrix to come crashing down around us. That works great in the movies, but that's not the way it's done in real life. And I want to point out here about the idea of God living in us. This is what John says in 1 John. Whoever confesses that Yahshua is the son of Allahayam, Allahayam abides in him, and he in Allahayam. So that, of course, would be one of the secrets or the meanings of life, the purposes of life. And we have known and believed the love that Allahayam has for us. Allahayam is love, and he who abides in love abides in Allahayam, and Allahayam in him. And of course, we know to experience that love, you have to jump into the fire and you have to suffer. You have to pick up your cross and follow him. Now, this next passage here, this is where it mirrors 1 John, and this, of course, is the Gospel of John again. And what's great is this time it's Yahshua actually speaking, and we can see here. We could always cherry pick these passages where, all you need to do is believe. My audience, you guys know this, but it's actually, if you actually believe, it's what do you believe in? It needs to be, there needs to be, you walk as he walked. You need to obey. There needs to be obedience to his commands. And he says, a little while longer and the world will see me no more, but you will see me, because I live, you will also live. At that day, you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me. So there is God in us, and I in you. He who has my commandments and keeps them, it is he who loves me. So there's the test right there. Everyone's like, well, I just, all we need is love. I love him. It's like, oh, that's great. Okay. Well, so you keep his commandments. And no. Well, okay. Well, that's the definition of love right there. That's the test. Yahshua's like, you claim you love me, then keep my commands. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him. And then Judas says to him, Lord, how is it that you will manifest yourself to us and not to the world? In which Yahshua answers to Judas, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. He who does not love me does not keep my words, and the word which you hear is not mine, but the Father's who sent me. That comes from John chapter 14. All right, let's talk a little bit about the meaning of sacrifice. So again, to experience joy, you have to feel sorrow and pain, and that takes sacrifice. Let's look at the meaning of sacrifice. And this one comes from, what book is this? It's a little bit of a longer passage, isn't it? The Silver Bow 6. How are we doing on time? I think I can maybe get through this. Okay, I'll read through this quickly because I want to get to the grand finale, and that's going to probably take like 45 minutes. Truth cannot be changed or destroyed or changed. She cannot be stripped and displayed to the eyes of men. Wisdom and knowledge cannot be trampled underfoot by turning the sword against their upholders. I may not be powerful. I carry no weapons. My voice may be weak, but better men will come in days unborn, and they will sing glad songs of light. The night of ignorance will have its end. I speak to the toil worn, to those heavy burdened with labor. In the bondage of servitude, you are free, because you are not shackled with cravings begotten by idleness. The idle rich are not free. They are slaves to their material possessions. They suffer under the lash of their thoughts. Labor is not toil and nothing else. Its rewards extend beyond worldly things. This is one of the tragedies of the rich who are denied them. Even the prophets of the past have not seen clearly the rewards of labor. I don't know what prophets are referring to there. I will teach you the truth, and it will make you free. There is a right way to labor, and there is a wrong way. There is also a way of labor that is full of song, and a way that is silent. Both play their part. Men should choose their form of labor and not have it thrust upon them. In it, they should find contentment and self-expression. Then it will not become wearisome. So, obviously grow up to do what you love, right? And that takes discipline. The man who would be happy and contented must seek a form of labor free from anxious thoughts and fanciful desires. It must bring satisfaction and confer benefit. These things have been said before, but I say them again. Do not pursue vain hopes or seek too high a reward. Ask only for a just return and remain your own master. It is unwise to seek a position too great for your abilities. By so doing, you burden yourself with a life of straining. Be satisfied with whatever fate decrees, and whatever problems perplex you, rise above them. Be without jealousy. Never. This is huge, guys. Like, the spirit of jealousy. This is what actually killed. Joseph didn't die, but his brothers who wanted to murder him. This is what drove them to it. Be without jealousy. Never envious of another's position. Meet success and failure with equal poise, and your labor will not be burdensome. Learn to see the hand of the Supreme Spirit in all things, and make your labor the sacrifice, your toil the offering to him. No others are asked than these: care and diligence, honesty and skill being your form of worship. So this kind of helps to highlight what it means to, magnify, yourself. It's not talking about puffing yourself up. It's not talking about pride. It means that there's nothing we can do. There's no words that we can say that makes God any greater than he already is, right? But if we're here on this earth to be tested and tried and to be purified and to be, to be made righteous, right? The idea is that the form of worship is one of the ways we can worship God is by putting out our best work. Everything you do, you are a representative of Allah Hayam, right? We are his nation of priests. And so everything we want to do, we want to basically co-rule with him in whatever task we are assigned. So let me say this again: honesty and skill being your form of worship. Does that make sense? You worship well. Diligence in the task, a life of moderation, dedication of wealth, leisure hours filled with service or study. These are proper sacrifices, not poor, dumb creatures. Those who curtail pleasures and then do nothing useful with the time gained are fools. So this is what it's saying here is, like, guys, it's okay to have pleasure in life. All right. To abstain from enjoyment to serve beneficial ends is good. So also is dedication of worldly wealth beyond modest needs. Giving an honest day's labor for wages, living modesty and frugally, without meanness or harsh austerity. These two are worthy and acceptable sacrifices. It is through sacrifices such as these that the soul spirit is truly glorified. Neither contentment in this world nor happiness in the world to come is for those who do not know the meaning of sacrifice. All right. So if you're basically, and this is one of the reasons why many rich won't inherit the kingdom of heaven. They already gave it. Like let me just read this line up here again. Do I have to, if I can find it? You guys were there for it. Whatever. It was a good line. Another form of sacrifice is the time devoted to studying the scriptures. Open your hearts to my words. I speak only for your benefit. My voice is not raised for my own amusement. There is much talk about the wickedness and arrogance of the rich. Oh, good. We're coming back to the rich. I was hoping we would. Have I said this? It is not only they who are wicked and arrogant, and no man can be called wicked just because he is rich, which is true. Not all rich people are wicked. Wealth does not necessarily serve evil. It more likely does, but even Yahshua says, no, like wealthy people can do great good for the kingdom. What matters is how persons deal with the inheritance entrusted to them. Not only riches, but also strength, beauty, or talent. Search your own hearts before condemning others. It is not only the rich who are idle. And that was it there, right? That's the tragedy of the rich, that they don't have to know suffering through work. They can totally suffer through work, but they don't have to. And so they're going to take the easy path. And that's the tragedy of the rich. Each of you ask yourself how you would fare under the test of riches and answer honestly. Is it certain you are not reviling the rich through envy? Are you sure there is no hypocrisy in your hearts? So, of course, as we know, the rich are hated, right? They're criticized, they're judged heavily. And this is what I go back to all the time, guys. Like, the Torah is a transformative document that is intended for nobody else but you. As soon as you start pointing the finger at other people and their problems, like, I just hope you've figured it all out. You're good to go. Like, really, because like, what is driving, I would say this, I of a lot of conspiracy theories out there, guys, like, what is driving some of this stuff? What kind of scars and baggage do we have? Is there jealousy? Is there envy? And would we do any better? Like, we can talk about how corrupt the government is, and it is, absolutely. But as we condemn it, let's be cautious about recognizing, are we any different than them if we were given that kind of power? It's a little scary to think about how a little power corrupts or allows us to be corruptible, gives us more freedom to be corruptible. Wealth is no light burden, and very few survive a severe test. Maybe the caste system is kind of true. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but maybe we really do have this lot in life because God's like, yeah, like, you would never cut it, dude. Like, you want those riches and you want that, you would never cut it. I'll give it to people who can handle it. And I'm saying that to myself too, guys. Like, there's nobody I'm thinking of, like, there's no face or name I'm thinking about when I say this stuff. But there are others, men of unusual ability, women of great beauty or talent. They too often fail. Look within before you look without. Like those other things, labor is a challenge. The outcome can be a gain or a loss, victory or defeat. This slovenly man who labors only to supply his needs is one on whom life is wasted. The man who declines to utilize minds and limbs to the utmost is no better than the man whose riches permit him to live a life of uselessness. The fault lies with the man, not his money. The enjoyments that flow from worldly things bear within themselves seeds of sorrow to come. Worldly pleasures are passing things, and peace and content are not to be found in them. The man on the right path is one who considers the earthly rewards of effort less valuable than the spiritual gain. All men become pilgrims on the way. That's some interesting phrasing right there, which I love. The way of Yahweh, the way of Yahshua. So all men become pilgrims on the way when their labors and efforts are dedicated to serving mankind. I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's kind of interesting too, because I've been in the ministry my entire life. I grew up as a PK. I grew up in a parsonage on church property. I've seen this my entire life. And even more so now that I am in a public ministry, leading one. And I find that those who give the most, those who serve mankind the most, serve God through service of others, ask for the least. They expect the least. They want the least. The people who kind of show up and demand are the most opinionated about how things should go. They're the most, they can be the most toxic. They can be the most, just the most of everything. You just fill in the gaps. It just, every time, guys, it's like that. Those who give the least, who serve the least, typically are the most opinionated, the most trouble, they come into the room, disrupt. It's amazing how that works. Absolutely amazing. Well, these pilgrims on the way, who are serving, or they're dedicated to serving mankind. They reach out for spirituality when they find pleasure in their task. I say this all the time, guys. Like, we're not going to make it if we don't find pleasure in serving Yah. Because everybody wants to go to heaven, but do they really? Because if you don't enjoy serving him now, you're not going to enjoy heaven very much. I think I can guarantee that. I can't say I've never been, but I have no memory of being in heaven, or the heavenly realm. But from everything I've read, that is a true statement, that if you do not enjoy serving now, you just want to take from ministries, from people, from others, you just want to take and consume, and probably not going to like heaven too much. The man who labors with zest and dedication, even though the result be small, is a better man than one who lacks these qualities. Even as in all fire there is smoke, so in all things created by men there will be some imperfection. It's kind of an interesting thought there, right? Because, you sit around a warm fire, and you know how, like, you try to avoid the smoke, and you get up and move to the other side of the fire, and then the wind changes and it hits you in the face. You're like, oh, come on. And it's like it just follows you around all night. And that's the imperfection, right? Like, that's the thing with the stain of man. With, like, anything I touch, guys, there's going to be some stain to it. There's going to be nothing perfect. And people can stand around and go, oh, I can't believe, like that. They just look at that. They don't look at the fire that I'm putting out. They look at the smoke. Like, I just can't believe. I can't believe that about him, and you just focus on this. People go around. I see this with other ministries too. They just go around and focus on the smoke rather than the fire. So even as in all fire there is smoke, so in all things created by men there will be some imperfection. For perfection lies outside of this world. Excuse me. The best man can do is strive towards perfection. Whatever he turns his hand to, make it the goal. You may think me a doleful prophet, preaching the glory of the sorrowful path, but I am not. The inclinations of men lure them from the road. To turn them back, I too must leave the road and take a stand where the inclinations have led them. Excuse me. Need a little bit more coffee here. This is a great line too, by the way. I do not speak of things supporting them along the way, but of things leading them astray. Well, I think what he's saying there is that it's kind of like the idea of the shepherd. He loses that one sheep, and he finds more joy in that sheep returned than all the other sheep who haven't left. But he goes out. He has to go out and find that sheep. And the idea is that because I really connect with this myself. I don't know if you guys do, but I touch on a lot of things that feel kind of dirty sometimes. I feel like my hands are dirtied. Soiled. I'll talk about like like movies, for example, like the messages that are coming through the movies, or I'm trying to connect with people in all these different ways, even in politics, or we're touching on Hollywood now with bringing on Hunter Tylo, and these are things that they feel dirtied to talk about them, but it's about bringing in, watching where people have gone astray and trying to go to where they're at and looking for the sick who are looking for a doctor and bringing them back, right? This was the whole idea of Yahshua eating with the sinners. He wasn't at like that. He wasn't at like, I don't know. He wasn't a strip joint or anything like that, right? He was going to people who were actually seeking him, but they were sick and they were sinners. I say to you, seek happiness, enjoy yourselves. Life is meant to be more light than shade. I also say these things cannot be made the whole aim in life. See them in proper perspective. Happiness is not the goal of earthly life. It is the reward along the way. Everyday life is governed by duty and obligation, not happiness and pleasure. To be over-concerned with happiness and contentment is the surest way to unhappiness and restlessness. Preach it, brother. I mean, isn't that the truth, right? The American dream, right? Materialism, just trying the pursuit of happiness, and just you want happiness, and they keep selling it to you. Nostalgia, and if you just do this and that, you'll be happy, and you go on this diet, and you eat that food, and you get that car and that house and that trophy wife, and just, whatever, or, maybe don't even get married and just live a single life and be the girl boss and just, all these things, these lies that they keep selling and selling and selling, and people pursue this happiness and they never get it. You have it for a few minutes, this fake shalom, this fake happiness, and you keep pursuing it, and it leads to misery. And the people who are just serving mankind, they are trying to make this world a better place because of they want to see heaven come down to earth. This is where true happiness is found. Submission to the will of the Supreme Spirit is the surest means of avoiding too much suffering and frustration. I agree with that too, right? The difference between the blessing and the curse. You can choose the blessing. Knowledge of his will comes, I just said that, and look at this line. Knowledge of his will comes from careful study of the scriptures. Anyone disagree with me on that? Joyfully, I remember like for years sitting around in Protestant in circles, Baptist churches, Brethren churches, whatever, Calvary chapels, and we're all sitting around going like, what is God's will for our lives? And we can't figure it out. And it was like there the whole time, the very thing we were told to reject, the first 5 books of the Bible. Joyfully accept whatever destiny bestows, be it joy or sorrow, good or ill. If you are blessed with many gifts, there is no better way to indicate your gratitude than just being quietly and contentedly happy, finding pleasure in even the smallest things. A man's trust in the goodness of the Supreme Spirit must not depend upon the outward circumstances surrounding that man. This is a very important thing to remember. He should try and quell all expectations and preferences, accepting cheerfully whatever comes his way. The man who serves best rises above all desire, attachments, and sense allurements, his only earthly ties being those of love, duty, and obligation. I did it last night, if you guys watched, when I was talking with Jenna, and I was talking about gnosis and the labyrinths, and how I had started out researching and writing labyrinths without ever having experienced one before. I mean, it would be the same thing. It's hard, right? When we're doing this internet research and we're trying to discover this stuff, but it would be like the same thing as me trying to research what it is to be a father without ever being a father, or what it is like if I were a virgin, researching what it is like to have, I guess, sex without ever having sexual relations with, a woman, and not just a woman, but, a woman that I am covering as a man, right? That I am dedicating myself to. And it was kind of interesting because I talked about my labyrinth experience, and I had a couple of them, which were highly frustrating for a number of reasons. And mainly because I didn't have that, that sense of, you're looking for that sense of spirituality, right? And I noticed that a lot of the new agey people, they're not like, they don't have families. They're always conveniently single, they're off by themselves with their whatever, their cup of coffee or whatever, and they're doing their yoga and stuff like that, but they're always kind of by themselves. Maybe they do have children. Maybe they just put them in daycare or something. I don't know. But, I'm a family man. I'm always with my family. And that was when I went through the labyrinth experience. That was my gnosis, my takeaway. I really came into a deeper understanding of love, duty, and obligation. Right? I'm a father, and this is who I am, and that is spiritual. Being a father is also spiritual, even if it doesn't feel that way. As long as we embrace our duties and obligations. To know the will of the Supreme Spirit and will what he wills, that is the supreme secret of spirituality, right? So again, it's not a touchy-feeling thing. It's not going to church and singing the right songs and raising our hands and working our way through this, through feelings. But the supreme secret of spirituality is love, duty, and obligation. That is the will of the Supreme Spirit, our Father in heaven. Laboring to fulfill that will is to worship with the daily task, a most profitable form of worship. So hopefully you guys understand now when it's saying that, like, there's nothing you can do to make God any better than he already is, right? This is more about a test for you, the meaning of life, why we're here. I say, let the will of the Supreme Spirit be supreme and subordinate all earthly labors to it. The path of life is on a mountainside. Man can ascend or descend according to his inclinations. He can take the hard or the easy way. Upwards is the light, downwards the darkness. Man has the choice. He goes where he pleases. I speak to you as a warner, and I warn against the ways of evil men. They are selfish men, unheedful of the good of others, the good which includes them. Their thoughts do not extend beyond themselves and their own. They seek to isolate themselves from mankind when the good of mankind is an issue. They do not know what should be done and what should not be done. They do not understand the nature of good conduct and the path of truth. Of course, these are the people who you could say don't study the scripture, right? Which is a noble pursuit in order to find the meaning of life. So they say mankind has no need for goodness. It has no moral foundation. There is no way of knowing truth. Sounds like an agnostic or an atheist. There is no supreme spirit, no creating God. That would be an atheist. All creation is the result of chance. Sounds like an evolutionist. And lust is the only cause of birth. The only purpose of life is an earthly one. We begin and end in the dust. Now, when you get into the book of the Illuminators, of course, which is, or the book of the Nazarene, which is tied in here with the Kolbrin, Yahshua says the same thing. He says that most people in their marriages will never rise above fornication or lust, which is kind of interesting. Set in the ways of this belief, these unconscious soul spirits dutifully serve the cause of evil, working, though they know not, for the destruction of mankind. They taint their soul spirits with unrestricted desires and stain them with uncontrolled urges. Full of arrogance and deceit, they ride roughshod over the spiritual inclinations of others and hold fast to their own dark belief. Their destructive work is carried on in the name of progress. Oh my goodness. It feels like this was written like, I don't know what, late 1800s, 1900s, whatever. It's all about progress, right? Yet with all they have, they are unhappy and discontented. They are loaded with many unnecessary cares, and their restless thoughts never give them peace. They fruitlessly seek happiness in sensual enjoyments, in pleasure and gaiety, in the frivolities of life, in drinking and gambling, in luxury and ease, firmly believing they will find it there, the life that life can offer no more. Kind of a sad picture, but you guys can just do make a 360 one day, and you could just see that all around you. They are bound fast with fetters of worldliness. They are blind and insensitive to anything else. They seethe within anger, spitefulness, indignation, and malice are relieving outlets. They seek refuge in lies and deceit. They hope for relief in outbursts of temper, in lust and sensuality, and in foul language. Their only aim is to amass wealth and possessions, or to live a life of idleness and ease. They cannot understand what drives them on. They say, what I have earned. It is my own. With it, I will acquire whatever I need to satisfy my desires. I have amassed riches. I have come to a high position. Men look up to me. I am praised and honored. I can buy what I desire. I will enjoy life. I am a success. Who else is like me? I give charity. I fulfill my religious obligations. This is like too scary. This is like, this just sounds like exactly how people talk. It is so scary. Let me read this again. I give charity. I fulfill my religious obligations. I am sought after by those who need advice and help. I live comfortably. I eat well. I have all I need. This they say, but are they really happy and at peace? Are they really successful having all they want? No. They speak from the darkness of delusion, though they know it not. They have been deceived by the trap of earthly conditions. They have fallen prey to the alluring phantoms of the senses. They are entangled in a net of delusion. They wander in the deep fog of illusion. They are slaves to their urges, captives of their cravings. They are bound and helpless in a chariot drawn by runaway horses, carried swiftly toward the yawning abyss. That was pretty epic, wasn't it? Weak men become drunk with the heady draughts of power and riches. They are carried away by their own arrogance and conceit. They try to turn earthly condition towards serving their own ends and struggle futilely against the law. And this would be the law of the Father. Willing slaves of arrogance and selfishness, helpless victims in the stormy seas of rage, lust, and violence, these servants of evil hate the divinity within themselves. They hate and fear the small, still voice inside. They stifle it. They smother it under the loud clamor of gaiety. They seek solace in strong wine, in sense-stimulating entertainment, and in spirit-poisoning drugs. OMG. Stand aside, let them be carried swiftly to the place of sorrow and vain regret. So it's like stand aside in terms of like, well, in life, but when you're in the hall of judgment and they come through that portal, it's like, get out of the way, because what was that dude's title again? Like the something of terror or horror, that whatever. He's like coming to get him. Hear my voice and do not fall into the trap of worldliness. Do not fall willing victims to the allurements of phantoms. Look for reality. Be satisfied with nothing less than truth. Do not reject the scriptures. Study them carefully, and you will have a guide through life. Amen. 100%. Agree with that. We're going to be starting the Torah portions, guys, in a couple months, like late September, whenever we roll the scroll back. I took a year off. We're doing it again. And don't reject the scriptures. Study them carefully, and you will have a guide through life. They will reveal the right and the wrong, 100%. Follow their light. Do what has to be done. No more is expected of you. Heed what I say, for I am your friend. The Silver Bow, chapter 6. Here's that quote from C.S. Lewis again. If you want to get warm, you must stand near the fire. If you want to be wet, you must get into the water. If you want joy, power, peace, eternal life, you must get close to or even into the thing that has them. They are not a sort of prize which God could, if he chose, just hand out to anyone. From C.S. Lewis. I think we're gonna is that the grand finale? No, it's not the grand finale. This is a long passage here, but I think I could end on this here. Unfortunately, I hate to do this to you guys. I say this all the time. I'm like, well, if you wait till the end, and I'm always afraid some people are gonna like fast forward in the videos. It's like, no, sorry, you're gonna have to wait till next week. As you can see here on page 23 out of 57, and I'll probably add to this next week. But this is great because this is gonna be a 2-week study. The Meaning of Life. We'll do the Meaning of Life book 2 or part 2 next week. We're gonna end on this tonight. The meaning, purpose of life being forged in the furnace, which is what we just read from C.S. Lewis. Or if I can go back up here all the way to the top, as we learned from Mr. Planter, we can learn a lot from Mr. Planter, and Mr. Planter was forged in the furnace. The only way a man can become fully awakened spiritually is to know his true nature and to strive for communication with the spirit realm. This can best be achieved by meditation, or perhaps mindfulness expresses it better. This is a state of conscious awareness of all the potentialities within man, the ability to cut off all material disturbances and to bring the spirit into harmonious relationship with a higher, more compatible realm. It means gaining complete mastery over all material impulses, urges, and desires. Hold on, I'm going to hit the air conditioner in here. Hopefully it's not too loud for you guys. It was getting a little warm in here. When a conscious, awakened spirit occupies a material body in conscious unity, The whole being is united with the divine. It expands out beyond the limitations of space and time. Mindfulness controls the thoughts and feelings and clears an inner place, so that in silence and peace it is ready to receive an influx of the divine. Mindfulness and meditation opens a way of communication whereby the spirit of man may communicate with the spirit surrounding the divine. It is a higher form of prayer, a controlled concentration of thought. I've kind of covered this a little bit in the past with like Mary Magdalene and the mandala. I'm actually thinking maybe I might jump ahead. This is a long section. I'll read it. I'll read it to you guys. It's worth it. Clearing an inner place to form the shrine of the heart does not mean that it serves no purpose. The usefulness of a cave is in its empty space. The usefulness of a basket or a pot is in its emptiness. All wisdom and all knowledge, the answer to every question, are not to be found outside of man, but within him. He need not seek outside himself for the solution to the riddle of his nature. I actually love this line here. This is from the Book of Wisdom, by the way. And here I am traveling the world right now, but look at this here. He need not traverse the earth to find the answer. It can be reached from within himself. There too, he will find all that supplies the need of his spirit. I have been traveling for the last, with my family for the last 10 years, starting in 2015 when we got a fifth wheel, started driving across the country. We still live in that fifth wheel like half the year. When we go back home, we're going to be spending the next, probably half of next year in Florida. It's not a sure thing yet, but and because of this, we meet a lot of people who are pursuing this life of travel. And I have to say, after 10 years of it, I find that it's just empty shallowness for a lot of people. And we will make friends with individuals and they think this life is so great. And they just keep pursuing like this, I guess, trying to, the comfort and the ease, and they're trying to escape the pain and suffering. And they're trying to, I guess, find themselves out there somewhere in some culture. And they're always seeking. And then they get bored and they find it's all meaningless. So just remember that, right? Like you don't need to go to Paris or Tokyo or, Timbuktu or wherever or the Himalayas to find yourself. You can find yourself exactly where you're at right now. In his daily life and in all he does, each man should conduct himself as though intending to be a living example to others. He should act as though proclaiming his dedication to service in the greatest cause any man can serve, and as though inviting others to join him. He should be a leader showing the way and a guide indicating the path others should follow, the path each must travel alone. Every thinking man must surely realize now that there is something more to life than a search for happiness, wealth, or luxury. And that's what I just described, even with, people who, take up the life in an RV or whatever, that they're trying to leave. In some regards, they're correct, right? They're trying to escape the rat race, the rat wheel, whatever, the matrix, all that kind of stuff. But are they also trying to pursue happiness, wealth, luxury, comfort, trying to escape service, obligations to mankind, suffering? You see what I'm saying? And they're not going to find joy there. That life must be more than an idle drifting. There it is right there. The only efforts being bent towards seeking the still waters of contentment in the shallows of pleasure. There must be more than walking around seeking enjoyment. There is indeed something more to it than that. There is a purpose to life. I should have highlighted that right there. Purpose to life. And that purpose is living. So what is living? Well, living is meant in its fullest sense and does not refer to mortal life alone. Mortal life is the servant, the threshold. I love that threshold, right? The threshold covenant. Mortal life is a servant, the threshold of a greater life. You want to make a covenant to enter that threshold of eternity, and should be regarded only in this light. Like our mortal life is like, it's a tool, right? To achieve our ultimate goal. The duty of all is to awaken their own spirit to consciousness If, however, this has not been achieved, then the best thing to do is to follow the precepts and advice contained in the writings of those who have themselves awakened their spirits to consciousness. For the first step it is sufficient to be self-controlled and self-disciplined, the efforts of every man being bent towards learning more about himself. He must cultivate mindfulness to discover his own motives and to know what lies behind every thought. That's a tall order right there. And I try to kind of keep a lot of this to myself, but some of you know I've become much more critical to a lot of conspiracy theory, and I think it's because I've been in it for so long. I love conspiracy theory. I've been in it, it seems like my entire adult life to some degree. And I'm starting to find that more, and I'm starting to become skeptical of more and more of it, because I see that it's being driven from a certain place that maybe isn't actually maybe aligned with the truth. I know that very few people think of it in that light. But I think, more than trying to disprove the world, the longer I've been in this, I see that our ultimate goal isn't just to expose the lies of the world, but actually to know ourselves, right? Or as it says here, to discover our own motives and to know what lies behind our every thought, including why we believe what we believe, why we're making our deductive reasoning, our arguments, every word and action. He must discover every cause and understand its effect, because the things that we don't even know, our subconscious has effects on what we do and what we believe. He must know why he does a certain thing and by what means he achieves it. He must decide upon a plan of life, upon certain objectives, and carry them through to a successful conclusion. He must choose a path and follow it through to the end, not looking too far ahead that he ignores what lies before his feet. He must firmly ignore the cries of diverting desires and disregard the bypaths of foolish fancies. Sounds like the Pilgrim's Progress, doesn't it? As yet, no mortal man knows the true laws of justice, and no mortal man has ever seen the face of truth unveiled. No man has yet risen sufficiently in greatness to proclaim his ability to live free from all restraint imposed by others. Some may proclaim their ability or right to do so, but these do it not from strength, but from moral weakness. Their affirmation of their own freedom is in fact a declaration of war upon the liberties of others. They are no more than spineless creatures who decry the laws of morality and high principles only because these seek to restrain their baser instincts and restrain their unhealthy carnal outlets. While disparaging the existing codes whereby men live, they have neither the ability nor the strength to replace them with anything equally good and worthy. Certainly, whatever they did produce would never tend toward the spiritual elevation of mankind. Such as these must not be pandered to, and if they refuse to bear their fair share of the burdens of mankind, they should not be humored. Those who seek to assert their individuality at the expense of others are a menace not to be tolerated. The rule should be that everyone is to be granted the greatest possible freedom up to, but not beyond, the point where it infringes upon the freedom, rights, or contentment of others. It is impossible to give complete freedom to any man, and no man is worthy of it. Any freedom attained at the expense of another man is an unworthy freedom. No man has the right to condemn a moral code or standard of principles until he himself has risen above them. No laws, no principles, and no code should be discarded until they have been replaced by something proven to be better. The replacement of those already established anywhere, we could make a lesson on each one of these lines. I mean, there's so much meaty material here. The replacement of those already established anywhere is no easy task, and one certainly far beyond the experience and ability of any one person. Therefore, in the present condition and development of mankind, goodness and righteousness are expressed by the disciplined acceptance of the moral law and courageous submission to the written law. These must, however, evolve with man to meet his changing and greater needs. Now, notice here they're talking about law of men and not the law of Allah Hayam. Though the hope is that the law does line up with the Torah, the law of Yahweh. An evil custom or law is to be cast aside, even though it be established and accepted by many generations. A good custom or law should be taken over and followed, even if it be observed by your enemies and followed by them. The decision as to what is good and what is bad cannot lie within the providence of any one man. Laws are made and laws are changed, but no man truly knows what is right and what is wrong. This can be discovered only in the inspired books compiled by the hands of illuminated men. The time is not far distant when men should no longer think in terms of being good or wicked, rich or poor, sick or healthy, but in terms of being spiritual or material. That's really interesting. The basic motive behind a righteous and good life is not the quest for happiness. Righteousness, goodness, and morality are other words meaning self-discipline, duty, obligation, and service. That's amazing, guys. Like, they're tying in righteousness, goodness, and morality with self-discipline, duty, obligation, and service. These form a foundation upon which a proper way of life can be built. And within the framework of this foundation, the quest for happiness is certainly not restricted. Indeed, not only is it encouraged, but also earnestly urged. Nearly everyone has principles of some sort, but all have a tendency to push back the frontiers of these principles to suit themselves. Their idea of morality is subordinated to their material interest. Men should not be hypocrites with themselves and should freely admit to this tendency to subordinate their principles to their own selfish interest. A standard of morality or code of principles which is not absolute and unshakable is worthless as a support and no standard at all. Only the very wisest of men can set their own standards, and the wisest of men are too wise to do so. And obviously, here's what I want you to see right here. As far as man is concerned, the purpose of life is development and preparation for something greater. So here's what they're doing in the Kolbrin. They're constantly going back to the theme. Okay, here's the purpose of life, and here's how it kind of fleshes out in these different examples. So when it comes to laws, if the purpose of life is development and preparation for something greater, then we should constantly try to establish laws on this earth that we can see is leading people in that direction, right? Towards that greater, towards justice itself, ultimate justice. But to go back to C.S. Lewis, when he says, we know that in this life, there will never be total justice, but we can start chipping away piece by piece and piece by piece, and trying to get us there. This cannot be undertaken in a half-hearted manner or at specific times. It is the process continuing every minute of the day. Every task confronting man here is purposeful and necessary, even though its reason and end may be obscure from us. Now, we're coming up at the top of the second hour, and I like to keep these around 2 hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this section right here, and we'll pick up next week. Unless if you guys write me and go like, yeah, no, I don't want to hear any more about the meaning of life. Like, I'm really not interested in that. Just talk more about the Nephilim, something like that. But if you do want to hear more about the meaning of life, because I think this is really good stuff, let me know in the comment section. Of course, like this video, guys. Subscribe if you haven't, the drill. But let's finish this up right here. On the top of this line right here, each man must discover for himself his own weakness and frailty. But the creating divinity could have brought a painless world into being. This is going to tie right up with what Lewis was saying. But it would have also been one without purpose. It could have been peopled with perfect beings, but these could not have understood the meaning of suffering and tribulation. Now, because I believe in pre-existence, it's like, why aren't we perfect beings? And I do believe it's because we have fallen. It seems to be the message put forward by Joshua in the book of the Nazarene, that we were the bastard sons that have to reclaim our sonship. But anyways, these could not have been understood the meaning of suffering and tribulation, right? So that's why we're here. That is the meaning of life, guys, to understand suffering and tribulation, to embrace it. And that's the only way to experience joy. So for anyone saying, well, happiness is not encouraged, that's actually the complete opposite. If you're going to chase after happiness, you will not experience joy like you will when you suffer through tribulation. They would have been devoid of pity, tenderness, and sympathetic understanding. It is not through the divine will that man suffers. The divine will is that man fulfill the divine plan through learning to overcome the restrictions and illusions of a material existence by rising above them. The troubles and trials are there to goad man on, to stimulate him, to rouse him out of the material lethargy, and urge him toward the development of spirituality and wisdom. If man suffers unduly, it is because of his own heedlessness and waywardness and his ignorance of the true meaning and purpose of life. And again, right, we see this in the Torah. It's up to you guys to choose the blessing or the curse. It's your choice. You can go up the ladder towards the light or down to the darkness, or the mountain, as they say here, right? It's a path that goes up and down. Choice is yours. And all along the path to the light, there are paths lead off to your distraction, lead off towards the curse. And you've heard me say this dozens of times already. People come to the Torah. They start realizing that Yah has these commands that you can be righteous, that they've been lied to and told that you can't be righteous. And actually you can. And so they start obeying these commands and stuff. And they're like, why is my life not getting any better? Why is it still filled with curses? And it's like, well, how much of this suffering is unduly because of your own heedlessness, waywardness, because of your choosing the curse? That's still there. You still have the consequences of that. Yah doesn't go like, oh, well, you kept like 7 Sabbaths in a row, so I'm going to cut you a break. I'm just going to take it all away and you're not going to suffer anymore. Actually, it doesn't work like that. The earth is imperfect because its imperfections are essential. So that's another way to phrase it, right? They say like ignorant men would see the earth as imperfect, but actually here they're kind of saying, well, it is kind of imperfect, but it's actually intended that way for perfection reasons. The social imperfections, as distinct from the natural imperfections, are the result of man's lack of understanding and his dedication to material ends rather than spiritual ones. The trials and tests resulting from the natural imperfections of earth do not oppress man nearly as much as the afflictions man has brought upon himself through seeking to establish a life wholly within the material. Wow. So, we can blame the earth all we want, but it's saying here, like, look, dude, like the earth chastises you, but the earth is going like, dang, like I was just trying to discipline you, but you're just heaping on this material illusion upon yourself and bringing yourself to total misery. It is necessary to know the difference between the two and to separate one from the other. The reason that there is so little divine intervention is not that the divine, this would be Allahayam in heaven, remains indifferent, but that man has been given all the powers and wisdom necessary to deal with the affairs of the earth. If he fails to make use of them, then who is to blame? That makes a lot of sense. God is up in heaven going, yeah, I've given you everything you need. So if I come down there, you're just going to blame me, right? I'll be the scapegoat. Now, obviously, Joshua came down and he became the atoning sacrifice for us, but I think you guys understand what they're saying here. The duty and obligation placed upon man relate to his reaching upward towards spirituality and outward towards perfection. There's a macro verse within a micro verse right there, right? Because you hear me talk about that with the mandala in the cathedrals a lot. And the kingdom of heaven is a mandala where you have to reach within yourself in order to expand and reach out, to go further up and further in. And C.S. Lewis talks about heaven as they're like peels of an onion, and how they keep getting bigger and bigger. And so the way he describes it is this gnosis that as you go further in, it's almost like if you were in like a Matrix movie or something like that. And imagine like if somebody kept running back into the same room, but every single time he runs out one door and he comes in the next. But every time he re-enters the room, it's like everything is bigger and grander and more beautiful. And you're like, huh. And you run through that door again, and you come back in. You're in the same room, but it's bigger and grander and more beautiful again. That's the macroverse within the microverse. The kingdom of heaven is supposed to continually expand like that. If man declines to do this, he must accept the consequences and blame none but himself. Were there no pain and suffering, man would be like a jellyfish drifting aimlessly with the currents in a sea of matter. Suffering, pain, and sorrow result from an existence within a material body and are not a part of man's spiritual heritage. It is for those who creep into the shadows afterwards, but it's not for our intended spiritual heritage. The bonds of humanity are forged in the furnaces of life and not in its tranquil breezes. And who does that remind us of? Here's a great line here. Forget what has been done and cannot be altered, and do not be concerned about things which may never happen. I was asked this question a couple weeks ago during our Kingdom Verse Roundtable discussion, what I thought about, I think the question was like what I thought about Yellowstone being a super volcano and blowing up. And this is one of those things that, I remember having this conversation 20 plus years ago, like after 9/11, and they start putting out there in the news cycle that, Yellowstone's a super volcano. It's about to blow up. There's tremors and there's things happening. And I started reading into this and getting really concerned. I started going around like Chicken Little and talking to people about it. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. And I thought they were, crazy for not listening to me. And, I'd start reading that, like, if it blows up, if Yellowstone blows up, it would, of course, annihilate all life in Middle America. But the effects with the smoke rising and blocking out the sun, the ashes would be falling in like the state of Texas, probably down in Mexico, California would get it. Like all in North America as we know it would be gone. And this really concerned me. And so to this day, I get people approaching me and talking. I've had phone conversations. I've had people call me up like, Noel, you need to start talking about this. You need to talk to people about how Yellowstone is going to blow up. And I've asked people, like, what do you want me to do about this? What if it's not that, it's other volcanoes out in the Pacific, or I think there's some in California now or something else. And it's like, what do you want me to do about this? Like, what can I possibly do? Oh, you need to warn people. Well, you know what? I am warning people. I'm telling them to live a righteous life. That's what I'm doing. Read this line again. Do not be concerned about things which may never happen. I can't do it. There's nothing. I'm going to sleep perfectly comfortable tonight. And Yellowstone might blow up tomorrow morning, and there's nothing I can do about it. Well, actually, I guess I am in Europe right now, so maybe that's why I'll sleep a little bit better at night. But no, seriously, like if I were in Yellowstone National Park tonight, going to sleep, I would, assuming it's summertime, so it's nice warm weather. I might not sleep so good if it's really cold, and my toes are frozen. Yeah. So guys, it's if you want to prepare for disaster, right, have a life well lived. That's the meaning of life. Let's jump down here to the bottom. Goodness and wisdom should not be secreted, for when their possessor cuts himself off from others, what purpose do they serve, and how can they be measured and tested? The good man who fears contamination by the world has no confidence in his goodness and renders no service. Actually, this is a great line to end on tonight. I'll go finish this paragraph, and then I'm going to talk about this. If a man is found sinking into a morass of mud, he who tries to rescue him cannot be rescued by anyone standing off. The man who attempts to clean up the morals of the people is like the dusting cloth, which cleans only by becoming soiled itself. I fully agree with that. And this is something at Tuck that again, I've covered a lot of subjects. We'll talk about the movies. We'll do a lot of different things like that. I'll write a lot of different subjects and papers. And I can't do that unless if I go, watch those movies and, read those books and discuss them with you guys. And that's the thing, right? If you got to get in the mud to pull somebody out of it, right? If they're in the quicksand, you got to get out there and pull them up, as long as they're asking for help. So let me say this again. So the good man who fears contamination by the world has no confidence in his goodness and renders no service. That's a really interesting way to look at that. And inevitably, a lot of these denominations of societies and even churches who they have that complete separation from the world mentality, they fizzle and die off. And so I personally don't think that is a good way to expand the kingdom. I don't think it's a good way for revival. I think a true revival is confronting the enemy in the streets where he's at, to going out there and being like, no, I am a good person. I can overcome these odds. Meanwhile, the cowards, the people who think, they're going to frame themselves in a certain, well, I'm righteous. I'm too holy for that. I'm not going out there and dealing with that stuff. Well, if this is true, it's the good men these men, they're good men, but they fear condemnation by the world. They have no confidence in their goodness. John the Baptist said the same thing in the book of the Illuminators. He looked to the people of Qumran. He's like, look, you guys are, they criticize him for going out and speaking to the sinners, just like the Pharisees did with Yahshua with the sinners. And John the Baptist says, like, I know you guys are good people, but you're not putting your goodness to the test. You're actually afraid. You're afraid to do it. Yeah, so we'll end on that note tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed that. As you can see, I only made halfway through. So we'll just pick this up next week. We'll talk about the meaning of life, part 2. I was planning to talk about a different subject, but this is too good to set down. So love you guys, and I'm going to end it, of course, with a word from our commercial sponsor. And I will. We are going to have Kingdom Verse after this. Please come by, guys, and I want to hear from you guys, hear what's going on in your lives. Talk to me, talk to the group, talk about whatever's on your mind. Looking forward to it. It's one of my favorite times of the week, obviously, because I'm not in a brick and mortar church. This is my congregation. So you guys are it. So please come by. And one more thing, keep in mind that we are a ministry that is fully dependent on your provisions, or Yah's provisions in our lives, through you guys. So, I have Rebecca to help support, and Pamela to help support, as well as my own family. And yeah, guys. So I ask that you guys pray about it and see if Yah would have you take part in the blessing in our lives. So, good night, everybody. Love you all. Have a great, restful Saturday. KillParasites.org is pleased to partner with and support the Unexpected Cosmology. More and more people are becoming aware of the link between parasites and many chronic diseases such as cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, multiple sclerosis, and heart disease.
Parasites are ubiquitous. They're all over the planet. Everybody has parasites. You could assume it. About maybe 10, 15 years ago, I stopped testing people to find out if they had heavy metal problems, because everybody did. I've never met anyone who doesn't have heavy metals. Okay, so why test? Why do that? Okay, but that's heavy metals. Parasites, the reason they're called parasites is because they successfully avoid being detected and killed. They're successful. So you're not going to find them. They don't hang out in our stool. They don't hang out in our colons. They might show, an adult form might show up there, or you got some pinworms, they might show up there. But for the most part, in order for them to survive in the long term, they have to burrow deep into your tissue. So they'll burrow into the colon, the lining of the colon, the bladder, lining of the bladder, ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, spleen, liver, and then lungs, brain. And then here's the thing. If you undertreat them, let's say you only use ivermectin or you only use fenbendazole, you disturb them, and then they migrate to another organ like the pancreas and go deep in the pancreas, and you wind up with pancreatic cancer.
KillParasites.org. Tell them that Noel, the Unexpected Cosmology, sent you.